Thank you, Leona, and thank you, Tina. Oh, Tina just feels every word. She makes me feel it. In preparing this talk this evening, which is called As Above, So Below, I took a journey of my own. I've been a massage therapist for over 35 years, and during those years, I've learned an awful lot. I've started to see arcs, things that are patterns through all of that, and then adding to that my unfolding of learning through science of mind. It started to gel for me that this physical creation that we get to walk around in, or sit, or sleep, or do whatever we do with it, it's so amazing. And the more I look into it and give it my attention and focus, the more in awe I am. And my hope tonight is to impart some of that feeling to you, so that when you walk out of here, you're just going to shake your head in amazement and say, I had no idea how incredible this is. And it's more than a reflection of every single one of the qualities that we attribute to the divine, but it is an actual extension. This form is God in life, in this three-dimensional reality. And I would love to be able to share that with you and have you really get that. So I have a subtitle, and that is that our body temple as the divine pattern of perfection. So the end result will be that you know how sacred you are, and how sacred this life is, and how unbelievably fortunate you are and I am that we've been given such a precious gift. You're probably familiar with a lot of the phrases that we use in science of mind, such as God is in me, through me, as me, or God, there is operating through my being, a divine presence that must express itself through me, as me. This physical body is the creative expression of the divine perfect pattern originating from spirit, just as a master architect or your high school sewing class teacher presents a blueprint created from an idea or an ideal of beauty and perfect engineering and architecture. The blueprint can be used as a model pattern or a design from which many more copies can be duplicated and used by anyone to make it possible for them to recreate the same thing from that original idea. That's very similar to how we express the scientific method. It's got to be a principle that can be repeated, used by anyone, and get the same results. So if perfection is the grand idea that we call God, then consider how amazing it is that this idea has been capable of being duplicated millions and trillions of times over through genetic principles to form a body. And that's not only human, but animal, plant, and even mineral, that works efficiently, gracefully, and harmoniously within its own self, and also in concert with its surrounding environment. So there's a harmony there within and in between us and everything else that has life and is life. And it is also capable of experiencing things, qualities like joy, beauty, pleasure, freedom, and especially for humans, producing a sense of understanding, compassion, wisdom, and even illumination, which includes divine union. Divine intelligence creates itself into a being which also has the capacity of manifesting through its own creative ideas an endless multitude of things and thoughts. Besides our own capacity to create and recreate, all living forms are a self-healing mechanism. And that's an incredible thing right there. It is only when we humans get out of balance in some way that we then require outside intervention, much like an over-polluted river or lake that can no longer clean and clear itself sufficiently. And just as a scale, as in the Libra system, becomes weighted on one end and unequal, when the optimal balance of a lake becomes tipped more toward pollution than being clear and clean, the lake can no longer keep its balance. And if that imbalance continues for too long a time, it starts moving towards stagnation, then decay, and eventual death. In the case of ponds and lakes, you'll see scum that forms along the surface, which is a form of stagnation. Too many toxins collect and are not being removed from the system quickly enough, so more decay than renewal is taking over. An unfortunate example of this is a friend of mine who had been my next-door neighbor. She'd been dealing with an infection for a while that her doctor was incapable of finding and treating. As a result, her body wasn't able to retain nutrients for several months, at which point she became so weakened that one day she slipped and fell on her bathroom floor and could not get up. Almost an entire day passed before I noticed that she wasn't around. And so after I called the paramedics, they took her to the ER, where her infection was finally identified and treated. But too much time had passed in which her body wasn't able to absorb nutrients and remain strong. So in the few weeks that followed, her organs started shutting down until her entire system was incapable of functioning. She soon succumbed and passed on. We can go so far out of that delicate balance between good and ill health that neither we nor any outside intervention can stop that process of decay and eventual death. So, not to dwell on this, what I would like to do now is invite you to stand up and do a yoga pose that is called the tree pose, and I'll describe it to you as we go along. In the physical expression of balance, I'm sure you all know someone who may be older and more frail, or perhaps you yourself, who has trouble maintaining his or her balance while standing, moving, or walking. Without balance to keep us erect, stable, and moving forward smoothly, we tend to fall. Balance is the key to stability. So to illustrate this, if you're all willing to stand up, I'll show you this pose. Generally, the focus with all yogic poses is to keep your balance, but what I'd like you to focus on is what it feels like if and when you start to go out of balance, and to register that and see what it feels like not to be in balance. So find your stronger leg and start shifting your weight to it. I should stand on the side here. And start shifting your weight to it. And then bring your arms up over your head. Now, you may start with your other leg. If you need to, keep your toes on the ground first. Bring your heel to the standing leg. Take a nice deep breath in, and on the out breath, slowly, if you can, raise that heel up your leg towards your knee. If you can remain holding it, which I obviously can't, if you can remain holding it, take another in-breath, and on that next out-breath, if you like, keep your arms 45-degree angle, spread them out so that you look like a flowering tree. I'm not very good at this. And if you can hold it for a slow count of 3, that would be great. And then take another in-breath and slowly bring that leg down. And then your arms. That was your stronger leg. Now, those of you who are brave, try it on your weaker leg. So again, arms above, toes of the other leg on the floor with your heel at your on the side, the inside of your leg. Breath in and out breath. Slowly drag it up that leg towards your heel. And now in breath and out breath, spreading your arms. In breath, bring your heel slowly back down to the earth. And you can bring your arms down. What I would like to do is ask someone how it felt. If there was anyone who maintained their balance throughout this whole exercise, raise your hand. Is there anyone in the room who's been able to do that? Excellent, very good, Grace. Yeah. Did you find a difference between using the stronger standing leg versus the weaker standing leg? Did you have any success either way?
They're both the same to me.
Ah.
I had that similar experience.
Similar?
Exactly. I actually think my weaker leg did better on it.
Even if it was a moment where you felt you succeeded in balance, how did that feel? Yeah. What was there a quality that you might want to say? What?
Present.
Present. Okay, how did it feel when you felt yourself teetering or wavering?
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Helpless.
Helpless. Feeling out of control, perhaps. Well, you can sit back down if you like. It might have also felt like you were struggling when you were trying to get back to balance. And these qualities that you felt, like the vulnerability, that's a big one. When we are in balance, there's a sense of strength and stability that tends to make us feel that all is well. When we experience the struggle of trying to find that center point, we don't at all feel stable and strong. So you can see how essential balance is in our enjoying a steady flow of energy that's fundamental to having a life filled with all good: love, beauty, joy, freedom, peace, wholeness, centeredness, abundance, and so on. We humans, more than animals probably, subject our physical bodies to greater excesses in the pursuit of whatever brings us joy or a sense of power. Perhaps in sports, entertainment, even in sex. There's a cable TV show I kind of went through called Sex Brought Me to the ER. You know, people just experiment in all kinds of crazy ways, and it doesn't always come out very well. And there are all sorts of YouTube videos, and I think there also, Jackass is a show on TV also, featuring people, mostly young males, who experiment with various daredevil feats that usually don't go very well. And they end up in a crash and burn situation. We can go way out of bounds in our explorations of physical endurance and creative possibilities. There's one more thing I want to discuss in the area of stability, and that is something I consider one of the most amazing aspects of our musculoskeletal structure. The balance between stability and flexibility for every joint in our body, where flexibility equals freedom of movement stability, I'll say, equals oneness or connectedness. Every joint in our bodies has an optimum degree of movement, and we've established that as a range of motion with a specific degree of angle. This, I know, sounds a little scientific, but everyone who works with the body, like a physical therapist, chiropractor, or body worker, every one of us is aware of these exact measurements of angles and ranges of movement. We're constructed such that each joint can move freely within its given range of motion without fear of that body part flying off from the main trunk. For example, if I fling my arm, I trust that it won't come off my shoulder. Why? Because the tendons that taper off the muscles, say between my elbow and shoulder, attach to the elbow below the joint, and the muscles and tendons that are below the elbow attach above it. So you've got this lashing effect, and that gives you a great deal of movement, a circle of movement, depending on the kind of joint it is. So it remains connected and stable, but at the same time it's got freedom. And that, every time I recognize that, it just boggles my mind at how it's been so carefully created so that we can enjoy all the things that we do physically and not have to worry that something's going to just really fall apart. Unless you hit a ball really hard, you fling your arm way back, and then you can tear something. But it never really actually ever comes off all by itself, which is a very good thing. So we've got flexibility and stability together solved by this ingenious creative architectural solution. And do I think there's divine design involved here? Yes, I do. To balance my earlier remarks about decay and death, let's now talk about life. Anyone want to give me a good working definition of life? Just shout it out if you want to be brave. No, okay.
Birth, regrowth. There's tons of them. Sunshine, laughter, joy. What's wrong with you people? Come on. Trees.
Try energy.
Oh.
Self-regenerating.
Cyclical, there you go, that's something. Life is an essence. It's an energy. It's colorless, it's formless in and of itself. It seems to flow endlessly, animating any and all forms, from the microscopic to the gigantic. You may know the principle or law of energy that says energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Does this mean that it has always been and can never not be? Anyone? Can life ever not be? And if energy is life and energy isn't going anywhere, does life ever die? Is it eternal? Think about that. Let's hear what Ernest Holmes wrote in Living the Science of Mind. The life within you is God. Whatever is true of God is true of your life, since your life and the life of God are not two, but one. The enlightened have ever proclaimed this unity of good, this oneness of man with God. This life within you, being God, did not begin, and it cannot end. Hence, you are immortal and eternal. You can never be less, but must forever be more yourself, as this life within you unfolds through your experiences, through your gathering of knowledge and wisdom. Just take a moment and just let that sink in deeper. That's an amazing thing to hear or read. When this life energy enters a form, any form, what happens? We're animated. It appears that we wake up. we begin to learn and to operate using what our particular form provides for us. For humans, we can also awaken to have the awareness that we operate from the exact same principles as we attribute to this thing we call God. Along with being the self-healing mechanism that I mentioned earlier, we also tend to operate from a mechanism that I like to call the all roads lead to Rome scenario. By this I mean that our bodies, and perhaps all bodies, seem to have an inner directive that enables them to have an indeterminate number of gateways or entry points that at an optimal level of health are always open to any and all approaches of both allopathic and naturopathic disciplines and remedies. That means it really wants to be healed. In so-called Western medicine, allopathic medicine, we have access to surgery, medicine, and all types of tests to help determine the nature of an imbalance, perhaps even including the original cause of the dysfunction. With so-called natural therapies and modalities, we have a large array of approaches that include hands-on body work of many kinds, energy work, essential oils and natural herbal remedies and foods, use of crystals and other healing tools, acupuncture, chiropractic, and so much more. The overwhelming conclusion I make from this is that the body wants more than anything to return to or remain in its original optimal state of complete health and wholeness. And it's willing to do whatever it takes to get there. The body determines which path it needs to take toward wellness and wholeness through its intuition and innate intelligence. Even if you have a doctor who advises surgery or medication, it's still up to the body to determine if it will use these approaches to become healthy and whole again. For wholeness is the place from which it originates and to which it needs and wants to return. That's what is working for our greater good, whether we realize it or not. And of course, we can influence it with our mental attitude, using science of mind principles or any other life-affirming practice. When we are balanced, we are whole, centered, and at peace. And all the jagged pieces of our many parts are operating as one, smoothly, efficiently, harmoniously, and gracefully. Much like hearing music, witnessing dance, hearing poetry, or viewing a play or a piece of art. And as in our experience of any artistic expression, we enter the realm of beauty and become light, joyful, and free. Only then can we open to our true potential, our innate capacity to become elevated to that mystical realm we call the divine experience. I want to take a little more of your time to talk about order and interconnectedness. Can anyone here give me a good working definition of order? What do you understand about order, whether it's at the human or the divine level?
There's priorities.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
It's a plan.
I'm sorry?
A plan.
A plan. That's a good one.
The sequence of events so that everything works interconnectedly and beautifully, harmoniously.
Harmoniously. That's a very good one. I like all of them. Have you ever heard the aphorism, a place for everything and everything in its place? That's also order. In the body, every structure or element has its own place or position, its very specific place. And since I know 3 of these systems that work together interconnectedly very, very well, I know them the best. I'll speak about them: the skeletal system, which is our bones, the muscular system, and the nervous system. I see this at work every day. Vertebrae that might shift out of place slightly, out of their given position. What happens when they do that? It bumps up against nerves that creates pain. or it may cause muscles that are attached to them to begin to tighten. Or it might push against other vertebrae or the disc that's in between the vertebrae. And then that sets off other events that lead to varying degrees of discomfort, which then causes the body's posture and alignment to begin shifting to accommodate the change in balance based on where the stresses are now located, and so on. It just cascades down the line. What I've learned from this cascade of events is, number one, every body part, every structure, every element has been designated to a specific location in the physical sphere we call the body, a place where no other structure is supposed to be. That in itself is incredible. And to me, this is it's an expression of a very high level of structural order. And two, this cascade effect that I mentioned has everything to do with interrelatedness or interconnectedness, in which one part or system resonates with another one. This integral connectivity is a direct expression of a planetary interrelationship. So that when we say at the end of our mission statement every Sunday, a world that works for everyone, we're also talking about our own physical bodies that are a part of planetary integration. So that at every level, from the most personal and minute, up through the most expanded and seemingly distant and complex galaxies, there exists both order and interconnectedness at work. And you most likely can never have interconnectedness unless you do have order, so that parts can work together, kind of like the gears in a machine and in the old-fashioned factories. You have little gears and bigger gears, and they're operating at different rhythms and different tempos, and they all fit inside another. And that is order, and that is harmony, and that is interconnectedness. So we ascribe these to the divine presence, and we see them at work in a very real way in our physical beings. So if from no other reason I can say that this being is one with that which I call God. It is the extension, the physical expression of all that God is. And if you ever say that statement to yourself from now on, I hope that you'll really feel the reality of that your body is God in form. What I'm left with and what I'd like to leave you with is this utter sense of awe and at the mystery and the magic and the enormity of this relationship between God and every form, not just man. But we have the greater gift of becoming aware of it. And in that realization of it, there's an overwhelming sense that this is bigger than anything I can fully wrap my mind around. And when that happens, there's this very natural result of feeling humility, just a humility that has its rightful place. And it reminds me of my own experience coming to the Grand Canyon for the first time. I grew up in the East Coast, so I never made any trips out west, and I always had National Geographic magazines that I could look at, and I'd see these two-dimensional photographs of the Grand Canyon and think, well, that's really pretty. But when I made my first cross-country road trip out here, I stopped at the south rim of the Grand Canyon. And I will never forget that experience, because when I looked over the edge and I saw the immense depth of space, in the next millisecond, what I realized was that this is not only about space, but it's about endless time. Because I know that it took so much time to create that, to erode that. And so I was seeing this confluence of space and time. And it literally stopped my mind. And that's the kind of awe that makes me feel a very natural reverence, because I knew there's something larger than me, larger than my understanding. I may never understand this mystery that we call God, but when I get glimpses of it like that, it's just a delight, more than a delight. It's an incredible experience to recognize that my true place in relationship to this huge spiritual presence is I belong with my knees on the ground and my head on the ground in absolute reverence. That's the word I want to communicate more than anything tonight to you. To bring your own self into that sense of reverence, where you know that as great as God is, somehow or another, I'm taken into it. I'm included. I'm part of this life with a capital L that is unimaginably beautiful, powerful, and every second unfolds in ways that I could never direct, although I try to. You know, we each try to with prayer. We try to direct it. But it feels good to know that there is a power greater than I that is working for the greater good, not only for me, but for every individual, every being on this planet. And I am a part of that wholeness. Even as one individual, I know wholeness within my own being. I'm part of a greater wholeness, and so are each of you. And so I want to leave you tonight with more than respect, more than awe, more than the realization of the mystery, but with that sense of true reverence and true humility, that this is the special gift that we've been given. And I think it's really touching that in the other room, at the very same time I'm talking about this, there are human beings who've attempted suicide. And my sense is, if they could touch, even for a moment, this sense of reverence for life, would they be in that room in this moment? And so you have to think about, what are the greater implications? We want peace, we want harmony within ourselves, in our families, in our communities, and on this planet. We want that. And the only way to do it is to recognize first for yourself the incredible creation that you are, that you're part of. And also that if you recognize it within you, you can easily then recognize it for everyone that you encounter. And so, Tina, you want to come up and just help me out? So the end result is that, in a very real sense, each of us is a divine being having a human experience. So let's close our eyes and go within and know that there is a presence, there is that divine being that is operating every single moment, without and within my being, taking care of every little detail, and at the same time creating the bigger picture. And this divine presence is operating right here and right now for the greater good. And I am a part of it. I am one with that power that is this unfathomable intelligence and wisdom and unceasing love. What it is, it creates in me. It creates in you. so that there is no difference between the God outside and the God within. There is no separation, and there never was, and there never will be. There is only that sense of reverence and that feeling of humility, because we have the capacity to become aware of it, to enjoy it, and to be it. This is the truth, and there is nothing that can oppose it. As I release these words right now into divine mind, with gratefulness and humility, knowing that it is so, I let it be as I say, and so it is. Thank you.